Hey everybody, Casey here. So, I read a lot, right? And not just online. I'm sort of old fashioned about magazines. We get a ton of magazines into the house. So I read news magazines and business magazines. I love reading The New Yorker, The Atlantic. I'll read Wine Spectator. Occasionally, I'll even look at AARP magazine. But they keep sending it to me, not because I need it or anything like that. But I also occasionally will pick up Men's Health and Men's Journal. And it was recently that I was reading, just thumbing through Men's Journal, just looking for interesting ideas and expand my mind a little bit. And I came up with this article by a guy named Mike Sarraille. And the article was called Iron Sharpens Iron, Why You Need an Everyday Warrior Tribe in 2021. And this was sort of interesting to me because the notion of tribalism actually is seen in this country as a negative right now, right? We're all in our tribes and we're not talking to anybody. We're very exclusive instead of being inclusive. And Mike Sarraille's proposition is that actually what we need is tribes that are expansive, that grow, that nurture, that accept different ideas, but that make everybody within them stronger and better. And some of this is founded on the fact that he's got a military background, did a little research, 5 years in the Marines, 15 years as a Navy SEAL. To give you an idea, you probably should know, he's the recipient of the Silver Star, 6 Bronze Stars, 2 Defense Meritorious Service Medals, and a Purple Heart. I am officially intimidated, but I wanted to talk to him about a little bit of this notion because we are in an industry, right? We talk here a lot about an industry in which people don't necessarily communicate. A lot of companies have silos, and I think the idea of banding together to be stronger is a really, really good one. By the way, this is what share groups do in the food industry, right? Where non-competing companies get together to build each other up. But right now, I think that's really hard because of the year that we've all gone through. And the other thing that interested me about it was, despite sort of the positioning of this in terms of the military background that Mike has, when I read the article, it really wasn't just about physicality and testosterone. It was really much more about the mind, the heart, and the spirit, and about resilience, which are things that, it doesn't matter what the package is that it happens to come in. Those are the things that can see us and our businesses through good times and bad. So I reached out, connected to Mike via Zoom, and had a conversation with him. I hope you'll enjoy it. It's a little different. It's interesting, but I think he's got a unique perspective that a lot of people and companies would do well to adopt into the way they think about lives and businesses. So, Mike Sarraille, enjoy. Mike Sarraille, welcome to Morning Newsbeat.
Kevin, thank you for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
So the reason I wanted to talk to you is you had this great column, which I gather is going to be the first of many, that ran in Men's Journal. And it was all about the notion of creating an everyday warrior tribe. And the notion of a tribe fascinated me right away, because I think in this country right now, the whole notion of tribalism is not seen as a positive thing, like that everybody's sort of separated into their tribes and nobody talks to each other. But you're using tribe in a very different context, it seems to me. So talk a little bit about what sort of generated the idea for this article.
Well, Kevin, I think when people put a negative connotation on tribes, which arguably they are entitled to their perceptions, and I understand why they would say that. I completely get it. I think it's a result of the leadership of each of those tribes. They're not inclusive. They're trying to draw differences from other tribes. They're trying to point fingers and cast blame. And that's why you see so much division right now. When I talk about a tribe, and let's be honest, America is one big tribe. And if you break that macro view into smaller bits, there are thousands upon thousands of tribes, and that's okay. That's okay. As long as those tribes can come together, really focus on their commonalities rather than their differences, and come together for a good cause, and that is that there's nothing more beautiful than that. I will tell you this, and I hate to bring up this example because it was a horrible day. I'm sure one of the most memorable days of your life, like all the Americans that were alive, was 9/11. 9/11 was a horrific day where close to 3,000 Americans, to include a lot of our multinational friends who are in the World Trade Centers, lost their lives. But if you look at the good and the bad, if you remember, everyone put their differences aside, even though they belong to different tribes, Republican or Democrat, Mason or investment banker, people put their differences aside and rallied around those two buildings together as one big tribe called Americans until we pulled every man, woman, and child out of that rubble. And that was one of the I think the time we may never see that we were brought together through a commonality. And that's what lacks, especially with the divisiveness of what we just saw with the 2020 elections. We're better than this. We just got to wrap our arms around one another.
And it wasn't just the American tribe. I think it was the French president, whoever it was at the time, who said, "We're all Americans today." So there was a sense of coming together. And the interesting thing about the way you talk about the tribe that sort of you've created, and I love this this quote you're using here. You say, if you hang around 5 confident people, you'll be the 6th one. If you hang around 5 intelligent people, you'll be the 6th one. If you hang around 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th one. I need to get better friends, by the way. And if you hang around 5 negative people, you'll be the 6th one. And this notion, and I think that, and this is particularly hard right now, right? Because we're all sort of nobody's going to offices, nobody's going to gyms, nobody's going to restaurants, but the ability to hang out has been dramatically restricted for the time being. But the notion of people being being stronger when they connect as opposed to being disconnected is a powerful one that I think in business as well as in life, or is in life as well as in business, we've sort of lost touch with.
Let me answer this in a different way. It seems like America loves to exalt this sense of victimhood, and right now, I understand a lot of people feel like they're victims. They're secluded. If you aren't married, you're stuck at home by yourself, and it's okay to feel down and depressed. One of the things about the Everyday Warrior Initiative is I don't want to use a cuss word here, but it's okay to feel messed up. Even the most high performing individuals I've ever seen, I've rolled with some high performing individuals. They have moments of despair and depression. Guess why? Because they're human. But I want people to stop feeling in the face of COVID that we're all victims. COVID is a horrible thing, and these are the circumstances for which we now need to deal with. But in life, we are not victims. We control the majority of outcomes in our lives through how well we prepare, how well we plan, how well we implement the way we lead, and all the attributes and characteristics required for that. And if you can do that in a disciplined way every day, outcomes start to turn from negative to positive. During COVID, in the face of COVID, what you do own is the way you react to the circumstances that were dealt. And if you feel secluded, guess what? Jump on Zoom, text a friend, jump on Zoom that you haven't talked to. Let's say you haven't talked to him for a year. Jump on Zoom, catch up with them. I guarantee the endorphins will be firing in your brain, and you'll feel a sense of happiness. You've got all the decision-making power that you need in your life to take positive steps to get you out of that depression and that negative mindset.
And it is interesting to me how this technology, I mean, if I had read your column a year ago, I had never heard of Zoom. I would have read it. It might have occurred to me. I might have tried to reach out to you, right? But Zoom not only allows us to have this conversation and then share it with the Morning Newsbeat audience, but it provides the platform on which I'm even thinking about doing those things, which I think is really, really powerful. The other thing that occurs to me as you're talking about the connectivity is, the industry that I've spent most of my work life writing about. One of the common criticisms of it is that so many companies operate in silos, right? The marketing people don't talk to the merchandising people. The merchandising people don't talk to the store design people. The store design people don't talk to, don't talk to customer service. It's all that kind of stuff. And so companies are, there's way too many tribes, and they're too siloed off within a lot of these businesses. And it seems to me that figuring out how do we, the breaking down that silos, which is really hard, right? Is part of what you're talking about here, is understanding that all these pieces work better when they're connected.
There is no place for silos in any organization or in our country. Silos really, they're invisible barriers that inhibit communication. And if we can't communicate, we can't engage in conflict resolution. It's okay to have differing opinions, but as long as we can come together and can communicate in a civil manner to identify a solution, that's positive. The other thing is it prevents teamwork. So, Kevin, what the audience doesn't know is that, I engage in leadership development consulting for a living. And we talk about this when we come into companies, is those silos exist between the different functions within a company. And we almost have to remind them that if you cannot achieve this one thing, then you guys are dead in the water, and that is teamwork. If you cannot work as a team and recognize that if I work for company XYZ and I'm in marketing, and somebody within company XYZ works in sales, we're on the same team. It's not us versus them. Our competition is outside the walls of our organization. So all that infighting that goes on, that finger pointing and casting blame, which is one of the worst things you can do. When you're in a company with infighting and everyone's pointing fingers and casting blame, guess what's not happening? Problems aren't getting solved and opportunities aren't being seized. So when we come into companies, we most commonly see this is we got to get them communicating with one another. We got to get them recognizing that they're one tribe, regardless if you have your own ego and your own agenda, one tribe where everyone can selflessly put their needs aside for the good of the organization and move in a cohesive direction towards one unified and aligned goal.
Talk a little bit about your background, because give the audience a sense of where you're coming from. I mean, because you've done all this stuff and you've done it in some pretty high pressure situations.
I consider myself fortunate.
Most of us have no clue about.
Funny enough, people think I was like born in Texas, even though I live in Texas now, because of my cowboy boots, and sometimes I throw on a little draw. But I was born and raised in San Francisco and enlisted in the Marine Corps. I made it into their version of special operations at the time, known as Marine Recon. And I was also a scout sniper, which is the ability to reach out long distances and interdict, let's just say, bad guys. And then eventually I met some Navy SEALs, and I said, I want to try out for that group. And so I made it into the Navy SEALs and eventually to a higher group known as the Joint Special Operations Command, which we don't talk about much. And I served about 6+ years there, where you're pretty much the president's easy button for all his most dynamic national security affairs. And I have 10 total combat deployments. I was always surrounded by people that were more physically fit than I was, that were smarter than I was, had a higher IQ or effective intelligence. They just had better control of their emotions. I was surrounded by the most amazing people, and I watched them conduct selfless valor on a nightly basis. And by merely hanging out with those people that were better than me in every facet, just like the quote you just read, I became better as a human being. And what people don't know is, I didn't join the military because I played football in high school. I weighed 120 pounds when I graduated from high school. I made it into special operations. I was the little guy. I didn't like bullies. My dad said, I knew you were going to join the military. We don't have a military lineage in our family. And I said, why was that? I finally asked him 35 why he said that. He said, because you would always stand up to the bullies when other kids were getting pushed down. And I ended up getting beat up a lot. But I went from a 119-pound Marine to a 200-pound Tier 1 operator. And the military gave me everything that I wanted. And the military is not what most people think. Most people think of the military, their perceptions have been shaped by Universal and Warner Brothers studios. That's not how we led. If I describe the military in one word, it was love. It was love for one another. And regardless if you were a black man or black woman from Louisiana or a scrawny white kid from San Francisco, whatever differences you had went aside. You had one commonality. You were an American and you both believed in the cause. That's why it was truly, truly powerful.
It's interesting, and you just referred to a black woman from Louisiana. Now, some people will be watching this going, okay, this is all about testosterone in terms of your everyday warrior thing. And yet I got a clear sense from reading the Men's Journal article, it's not at all. I mean, it's much about heart and mind as it is about physicality.
The one thing that we talked about before we started recording is I'm so sick and tired of the tough guy routine. People look at me and they think I'm gonna fall. Let's be honest. They put me in that box. They're like, oh, this guy's just a testosterone-filled tough guy. And those that meet me know I'm not. The most amazing people I met sometimes didn't look like a warrior. And we went by one code in the military, and that was best idea wins. Again, that was whether you were a man, a woman, straight, LGBT. If you had a great idea, guess what? We're going to follow you. That was a great idea. What do you need to succeed? We've got your back. And I understand there's been prejudices that existed for so long. And hopefully with the Everyday Warrior initiative, we can beat those down. I have a daughter. If my daughter says, Dad, I want to become a Navy SEAL, one, I'm going to be wildly proud, and I'm going to do everything to help her to be successful in reaching that goal. One of my good friends who's also involved with the Everyday Warrior is a woman named Lisa Jaster. One, she graduated from West Point. And two, she went on, she still has an Army career. She's a battalion commander of her Army Reserve Engineer Battalion. But more importantly, she was the third woman in the history of the US Army, a 245-year-old institution. And she was the third woman to graduate Ranger School. And you talk about a woman that has just destroyed ceilings. She's one of the most humble people. She's one of the most effective leaders I ever met. And if she has a great idea, guess what? I work for her. And I've got no qualms about that as a man. So I want people to stop looking at gender and sex and sexual orientation. That doesn't matter. It's the character of the individual, and those come in all shapes and all sizes.
The talk you've mentioned now a couple of times, the Everyday Warrior Initiative. So this is your goal to kind of take it beyond the article that you wrote for Men's Journal. Talk a little bit about what your goals are here.
Here's what I would boil it down to. We champion sports stars, movie stars, people that accomplish these amazing feats, like Tom Brady. Everyone's been praising Tom Brady all week. Well, one, he's the GOAT. If you didn't know, he comes from the Bay Area. Big Tom Brady fan, amazing individual. But we don't champion the everyday American, the common man and woman, which I am a common man or woman. I'm a common man. Hopefully, I like to find myself as a common man with an uncommon mindset. But when you look at it, what's truly powerful is think about a mother, a single mother who has two children that's holding two jobs to make the bills meet. How powerful that is. How the difficulties she faces and she finds a way to overcome. But more importantly, the impact she's having on her children. Her children are seeing her do that, and they are becoming better human beings for it. They're watching their mom set the example. But very few people are in that woman's corner championing them. And so, people feel they lead mundane lives. They get up at 8 a.m., they go to work, and they come home, and that's it. Hey, guess what? I might have been a tier 1 operator, but now I get up at 4:30, I go to work, and I come home. And I don't think that's any less important than the work I did as a SEAL during all my combat deployments. In fact, I can argue it's more important. That now I'm in a position to contribute to my community, to build up the economy, to hopefully hire another individual to affect their lives. And we just don't do that. We look at what's sexy out there and focus on that.
So if people are sitting there, and maybe it's this woman who's raising her kids by herself and maybe working 2 jobs, or maybe it's a deli manager or it's a CEO, and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I need to. This notion of creating a supportive tribe that will make me better, and then I can help raise people up too. How do you go about doing that? I mean, it's because some people might, we sit together and have a beer at the bar, but there's something more to this, obviously.
Well, I'll tell you, you have to be very intentional about it. Much like building, the foundation, the cultural foundation of an organization, of a business, you have to be very intentional about your culture. I'm very intentional about who I surround myself with. And there is let's call it much like dating, there's a courting period to this to determine if my values align with somebody else's. The same thing if you're dating a man or a woman, you're trying to find out if their values align with yours. And so you have to get out there and engage with other people and you have to be open to meeting other people. And when you're open to meeting other people, it's amazing who you'll meet that eventually becomes part of your tribe. One of my closest friends, a guy named George Randall, who co-authored a book with me. I met him not out in town, but on LinkedIn. He reached out to me over LinkedIn, happened to be in Austin, said, "Hey, I would love to meet for breakfast." I met with him, and the guy ended up being the pastor at my wife and I's wedding. I mean, how does that happen? Usually you think you meet somebody at a church group and form a relationship that way. This guy had the courage to reach out and say, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to sit down and treat you to breakfast." And we did. And now he's one of my best friends. You just got to get out there. You got to engage with people. And a lot of people don't like to engage because we're so focused scrolling up and down on Instagram or Facebook that we're not looking up and out. We're not looking up and out and seeing what's available in the world. And part of life, and this is what goes back. People are losing sight because I think social media is reinforcing the wrong things. The greatest currency in life is not money. It's the impact you have on other people and the impact people have on you. And in order to engage in that impact, you got to stop looking at your phone, get up off your couch and go out, try new things, engage with new people. And when you do that, yes, there are some people that will take advantage of you, but you're going to find some amazing future tribe members that you'll grow alongside.
It's interesting. I just interviewed a woman named Fawn Germer, who is just wrote a book about it, and it's aimed at people who are have lost their jobs, and it's been tough, and they're trying to, and the two and whether it's they've lost their jobs or they were out of the workforce and trying to get back into it. And the two things she talks about mostly, and it's fascinating, it's the same, it's the very similar thematically, are resilience and networking, right? And those are the two things. The more you reach out and talk to people, the better your opportunities are to grow. But you've also got to be prepared that when you get knocked down, you got to get back up. And that's where character, as you say, adversity builds character. Character is adversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Resiliency is a characteristic that is required to be successful in life. There's just no doubt about that. When we put these young men and women through SEAL training, and usually about 250 amazing Americans show up to try to make it into the SEAL teams, the attrition rate is usually around 85%. Now, the training pushes people to their physical and mental limits so that we can reveal true character. That's when true character is revealed, is when somebody's at their limits. But SEAL training is designed to push people down. And right when they get back up, they push them down again. And right when they get back up, they push them down again, all to see how they react. And if they can keep getting up and moving forward. Now, funny enough about SEAL training is it's a talent magnet. You attract some amazing individuals that sometimes were silver medalists in the Olympics or NCAA athletes. They were the star fullback for a major university that had a top 10 football team. And they were usually the first ones to quit, believe it or not. I'm not joking. It's because they had never failed in life. And it was the first time that they'd ever truly experienced failure, because you're going to fail in training a lot. And that's part of the process. People fear failure. Stop. It's the most beautiful part of life. It's the greatest lesson you will ever learn. But you've got to be resilient, and you can actually work at resiliency. A good friend who's involved with the Everyday Warrior Initiative, a fellow Navy SEAL named Rich Davini, just released a book called The Attributes about the 25 hidden drivers to optimal performance. The book is beautifully designed, and it will smash a lot of preconceived notions that you can't work on becoming a more driven individual, or you can't work at becoming a more resilient individual. You can't. It just takes intentional and direct action to try to work at those attributes. Now, networking, yeah, you should always be expanding your tribe. There's no reason to be closed or to be elitist, which you're seeing a lot of elitism out there. And I have got no place or time for people that are elite or they feel entitled. I'm entitled to nothing. And I've watched a lot of friends who passed on the battlefield who were the most selfless people. And I'm just trying to emulate what they gave me, an opportunity to live beyond war. I know she also talked about being relevant. Relevant means you have to embrace change. Ben Franklin said two things are assured in life: death and taxes. Ben Franklin was a highly intelligent person, much smarter than me. I think he missed change. Change is constant in life. It's the one constant, thing we deal with. And in order to remain relevant, you've got to innovate and adapt on a daily basis. You have to change with your time. For you, Kevin, I'm sure when social media came out, you probably resisted that a little. You're like, oh, I don't want to do Facebook. I don't want to put my life, out to the public. But now even getting my 75-year-old dad to engage in Facebook to connect with some of his old colleagues from high school, he's now embracing it. He had to change, but he had to get past a certain mental paradigm to accept that that was the new way. And being relevant, and what I really liked about Fawn is basically she's saying to be an everyday warrior, part of it is showing up. You just got to show up. That's step one. If you have the courage to show up, I'm telling you, you've taken the first step. Things get a little easier after that. And a lot of people right now, they're just not even showing up.
And I'm not even going to take it personally that you just classified me in with your 75-year-old dad.
Well, yes, wildly different, but you know where I'm going with that.
Not quite there yet, but closer to him, his age than yours. Hey, listen, this has been fascinating. I could do this for hours, but tell people if they want to reach out to you and find out more about what you do, and as they sort of figure out how to be warriors in their own lives and careers, and build tribes that are going to help them do that, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so one, Men's Journal, we're going to be producing weekly, if not bi-weekly, content and articles that are relevant to human performance. This all falls into human performance. We are getting ramped up. We're going to be putting out a lot of content that I think you'll enjoy, things that are extremely important to us, that have been pivotal in our development as human beings. And they can find that at theeverydaywarrior.com. But stand by. I think you're going to really love the content we put out. And we may be doing some crazy things, some life-changing things, because we want to experience some things as well. Like we may be skydiving into Mount Everest. The best part of that is not the skydive. It's actually going to embrace with the local culture, which we're most excited about.
I have a fear of heights. You've just made my heart just like go like this at this point. Hey,
Kevin,
listen,
so do I.
Oh, really? Wow. Hey, listen, I hope you'll come back and do this again as you kind of move along. This is a really interesting path, and I think there's a lot to teach people in the industry that I write about, in terms of breaking down silos, in terms of being supportive, in terms of sharing in ways that raises everybody up. I thank you for doing this, and I hope we can talk again sometime.
Kevin, thank you for having me.